I have watched hundreds of survival videos on YouTube. I have seen people start fires with a soda can, purify water with a plastic bottle, and build shelters out of nothing but leaves and twigs. I have always wondered, do these hacks actually work in real life, or are they just clickbait? So I decided to find out for myself. I took a week to research the most popular survival hacks on the internet. I narrowed them down to 10 that seemed the most useful: fire starting, water purification, shelter building, food foraging, signaling, navigation, cooking, first aid, insulation, and tool making. Then I cleared out a small patch of woodland near my house, not a wilderness, but remote enough that I would have to rely on my skills. I packed a bag with only the items that a typical survivalist might carry: a knife, a flint rod, a water bottle, a tarp, a few basic tools, and a phone switched off for emergencies only. I gave myself exactly 24 hours from sunrise to sunrise to live using only these hacks. No food from home, no clean water from a tap, no tent, no sleeping bag, just me, the woods, and the hacks I had memorized. The goal was not just to survive, it was to see which hacks actually worked, which ones failed spectacularly, and which ones would have killed me if I had relied on them for real. This is not a sponsored video. I bought every tool with my own money, and honestly, I wish I had practiced these hacks before I went into the woods with only a few hours of daylight left. Let me give you some context about why survival hacks are so appealing. Every year, thousands of people get lost or stranded in the wilderness. The average person has no formal survival training. They rely on what they have seen online. Quick tips that promise to turn a disaster into a manageable situation. Some of those tips are genuinely life-saving. Others are outright dangerous. The problem is that most people never test these hacks under real pressure. They watch a video, nod their head, and forget about it. I wanted to know which ones would actually keep me alive. I started at sunrise. My first task was to build a shelter. I had watched a video that showed how to build a debris hut using branches, leaves, and a tarp. The principle was simple: create a frame, cover it with layers of insulation, and trap body heat. I gathered fallen branches and leaned them against a central ridgepole. I covered the frame with thick layers of dry leaves and pine needles. It took me nearly 2 hours, but I built a small, enclosed space that looked surprisingly solid. I crawled inside, and it felt surprisingly warm. The temperature outside was about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside, my thermometer read 52 degrees. That was a 12-degree difference, using nothing but leaves. That hack worked beautifully. Next, I needed water. I had seen a hack that claimed you could purify murky water using a plastic bottle, a cloth, charcoal, and sand. A DIY water filter. I had brought a spare bottle, a piece of cotton cloth, and a small bag of charcoal crushed into pieces. I layered the bottle with cloth, charcoal, sand, and gravel. Then I poured murky stream water into it. The first few drops came out cloudy, but after a few minutes, the water began to run clearer. It wasn't perfectly clean, there was still a faint brown tint, but it was significantly better. I boiled it for a few minutes over a fire, just to be safe. The filter hack worked, but it was slow and incomplete. I would not trust it for long-term survival without boiling. Next, I needed to start a fire. My favorite hack was the battery and steel wool trick. Touch a 9-volt battery to a steel wool pad, and it instantly catches fire. I had a 9-volt battery and a piece of fine steel wool. I touched them together, and the wool ignited almost immediately. I transferred the flame to a small pile of dry grass and twigs. Within seconds, I had a campfire. That hack worked perfectly, literally foolproof. I cooked a handful of wild edible plants I had identified earlier, dandelion greens and chickweed, on a flat rock over the fire. They were bitter but edible. I also tried the soda can stove hack, cutting the bottom off a soda can and poking holes in it to create a small, efficient burner. I filled it with a few twigs and lit it. The stove burned hot and concentrated, but it was fragile and burned through the can within 20 minutes. It worked, but it was not practical for cooking a meal. As the day went on, I tried a signal mirror hack using a CD. I broke a compact disc and used the reflective surface to flash sunlight towards a distant road. The flashes were visible from over a mile away, and I actually saw a car slow down briefly before continuing. That hack worked. I tried the navigation hack using a wristwatch. Point the hour hand at the sun, and halfway between that and 12 o'clock is south. I tested it against my compass, and it was roughly accurate. Not perfect, but close enough to get a general direction. I tried a first aid hack using a plantain leaf to treat a small cut. I chewed the leaf, applied it to the wound, and covered it with a bandage. The cut did not get infected, and it healed cleanly. That hack actually worked. But then came the failures. The water from a plastic bag hack, tying a plastic bag over a leafy branch to collect transpired water, produced exactly 1 drop in 3 hours. That was not enough to keep a small bird alive. The fishing with a bottle hack, putting bread inside a bottle and leaving it in the water, caught nothing. I sat for an hour and got 0 fish. The solar still hack, digging a hole, covering it with plastic and using a cup to collect evaporated water, produced about a tablespoon of water after 4 hours. That was not even enough to moisten my lips. The dandelion root coffee hack, roasting dandelion roots and grinding them, produced a drink that tasted like burnt dirt. I forced myself to drink it, but it was terrible. Night fell. I had a shelter, a fire, and some water. But I also had a growing list of hacks that had failed. I slept in my debris hut, curled up against the warmth of the fire. I woke up several times to add wood. The fire died out around 3 a.m., and I had to restart it using my flint rod, which took me 10 minutes of frustrated striking. That was a real lesson. The flint rod works, but it requires practice and dry tinder. By sunrise, I was cold, tired, and hungry, but I was alive. I had survived 24 hours using only survival hacks. Some had worked brilliantly, some had been useless, and some had been borderline dangerous. For example, the plastic bottle water filter. If I had not boiled the water afterwards, I could have gotten sick. The soda can stove. If I had used it inside my shelter, I could have burned myself or started a forest fire. The plantain leaf. It worked, but only because I knew which plant to use. If I had misidentified it, I could have poisoned myself. Let me give you the final breakdown. Of the 10 hacks I tested, 6 worked reliably. Fire starting with battery and steel wool, debris hut, shelter, plantain leaf for wounds, signal mirror with CD, wristwatch navigation, and boiling water with a simple fire. 4 failed or were impractical. Plastic bag water collection, fishing with a bottle, solar still, and dandelion root coffee. The ones that worked were simple, well documented, and required basic tools. The ones that failed were overhyped, inefficient, or based on unrealistic expectations. The most valuable lesson I learned was not which hack worked. It was that survival is not about hacks. It is about preparation, practice, and common sense. The battery and steel wool trick is amazing, but only if you have a battery and steel wool. The debris hut is great, but only if you have hours to build it. The plantain leaf works, but only if you know your plants. Survival hacks are not magic tricks. They are tools, and like any tool, you have to know when to use them, how to use them, and why they work. I went into the woods with a handful of tricks and a lot of confidence. I came out with a deeper respect for the wilderness and a list of things I would do differently next time. If I ever get lost for real, I will not rely on a plastic bag to collect water. I will carry a reliable filter. I will not try to fish with a bottle. I will bring a small fishing kit, and I will definitely practice my flint rod striking before I need it. Does living 24 hours with only survival hacks actually work? Yes, it is possible, but only if you choose the right hacks and use them correctly. Are all survival hacks reliable? Absolutely not. Many of them are internet myths that waste your time and can even put you in danger. Should you rely on them in a real emergency? Only if you have practiced them beforehand and have a backup plan. The most important thing I learned from this experiment is that survival is not about hacks. It is about mindset. You can have the best tools in the world, but if you panic, you will not make it. You can have no tools at all, but if you stay calm, think clearly, and observe your surroundings, you will find a way. The hacks are just shortcuts. The real survival skill is your ability to adapt. That is a lesson that goes far beyond the woods. It applies to every challenge in life. If you enjoyed this experiment and you want to see more real tests like this, you need to commit to this channel right now. Subscribe to Overlooked and hit that notification bell because I test the hacks that nobody else dares to try, and I show you the truth, whether it works or fails. Trust me, you will not want to miss the next experiment. If you have ever tried a survival hack, or if you have a real survival story, let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your experiences, good or bad. Thanks for watching. And remember, sometimes the best survival hack is not a hack at all. It is staying calm and thinking clearly. You just have to be willing to learn. See ya in the next one.